सागरे गपगरे गपधा पगरे ग
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final day here in this week of Unified Premier. My name is Sticula, and I'm joined alongside Corbeck for this wonderful Thursday afternoon broadcast.
Yeah, wonderful Thursday afternoon indeed, Stick. It's wonderful for Thursday afternoon for some Siege as well. Always excited to see how these teams play out in these kind of best of one situations. We've had 4 good matches this week coming down to this final one, so hopefully it continues the trend here tonight.
Yeah, so just as far as the matchup, we have been talking just primarily this week about kind of that playoff race, where that is at, because we've eclipsed the halfway point in our season. It's only a total of 7 weeks that the teams play. So if you are still,
Correct.
sitting 0-2, 1-2, depending on how many matches you've actually played, if you haven't had any forfeits or reschedules or things like this, you kind of got to kick it into high gear, and most especially today. So why don't we go ahead and speak on the topic of our league standings, get a better understanding of where these two teams are and how close they are in proximity to one another. To relax esports somehow, as we're all the way after the midway point of the season, Quebec, they only have a single game that they've played. I don't know how that's even possible. It's kind of
Mm.
preposterous to say the least. Um, GDK have played 2 matches and they've lost 2 matches. So not the greatest. I don't know what's going on with To Relax, but hey, I mean, are they gonna play all their all their games in 1 week? Are they just gonna kind of cram them all together?
Yeah, I don't know actually. It's good. I'm kind of curious myself. I don't quite know what the status of their team is, where they came in, or what they're doing. But obviously, I mean, that short amount of gameplay time, right, for both of these squads doesn't give us a whole lot to go off of in terms of our overall kind of understanding about what these teams are going to be like, how they're going to play, which is to our detriment a little bit here, Stick. And like you said, with the playoffs coming into the picture as well, it's unfortunate that we have those kind of gaps, right? We can't necessarily accurately predict what's going to happen here, but I mean, even if we do look at this as more of a matchup of unknowns, it certainly raises some interesting questions about what we might expect from these two teams. And because there is so little data available to us, it's kind of exciting to see them play, just if only to get a measure of their respective skill levels.
Well, one thing that we won't have to guess at is the rosters that'll be playing in this match will familiarize you with all of the talent that we've got across either of these two teams. Now, on the GDK side, I do recognize 1 or 2 players. Blue Fishy, I think, plays a lot of ranked. Proxy, otherwise known as Proxy Bomb, I've seen on Twitter every now and then. On the To Relax side, Freezing, I think, played for Intense. Not the Intense that played in a previous unified season. There was an Intense, but a different team, different roster. Um, Back during ESA, maybe November of 2020, maybe even December at that point. Gosh, just a long time ago. But I don't really remember Freezing as being one of the big players on that team. I think that was more Kunai and Lycos that I really got familiarized with. But Freezing has at least been around the block. It's always good to see a player that I know has been active, at least in some regard, in the comp scene for a little while. And another point on the GDK side that I did want to interject here is they are using, excuse me, they are using one of their substitutes, Hazmat, who is a player that I am very familiar with and actually kind of crept into sort of that T3 level of Siege a couple months back, even, probably 5, 6, 7 months ago now. He had retired effectively from Rainbow Six and playing a lot of Valorant. But it's cool to see a player that I used to cast all the time back when I was getting started.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see someone come home to roost a little bit, as it were. So, interesting to see how they kind of work into as a substitute into the overall roster, whether that kind of changes dynamics. I mean, when it comes to team rosters, right, I defer to your encyclopedic knowledge, as it were, Stick, because you always seem to know who's what and who's who, and I am not, unfortunately, quite as apt at knowing who's what and who's who. So, I defer to you on your little breakdown there of those teams and what we can expect from them. Surprised to say, though, really not quite perhaps the most regular or well known talent that we're used to seeing in these matchups. Still, again, much like having two relatively unknown teams playing together, unknown talent just provides some opportunities for some new players to sign, some new storylines, and talent's got to come from somewhere, right? In the Siege community, it's an organic process. It grows, right? And it's got to come from somewhere. So always a good opportunity to be on the scout for new and interesting names to kind of add to your notebook of players to keep an eye on right there. We can also take a look at the map bans here as well. I think we have a good idea of where we will be going today. Again, just to repeat, of course, it is a best of one match. And fortunately, we have been spared the sentence of
Oh,
perhaps a cafe in Oregon or a clubhouse. We narrowly missed cafe right there at the end. It looks like we have GDK to thank for that one, Stick, and it will be Chalet here as the final map for us today.
yeah, so this will be a nice little treat. We haven't had a huge amount of Chalet so far this unified season. We actually did have an opportunity to cast a bank match, which was great. I just
That
didn't really
was.
expect teams to try bank but we did get a cast on it. It was a nice little fun one. Chalet is also a great map. Another thing that I did want to interject with here, a bit of context to this match. From my understanding, Two Relax are more of that, picturesque kind of normal Siege team that's like scrimming a couple days a week, has got some strats that they've written down, has a clear understanding of who's going to be on which roles, which operators. On the GDK side, this is essentially like Proxy Bomb has DM'd all the players that he regularly queues with in ranked, and he's like, Unified has got this $2,000 prize pool, so why don't we go ahead and try to run it up?
Hey, I'm all for it, man. Good. I like both of those setups in a way. I mean, obviously, I like a well-practiced team, a team that's putting in the effort and staying organized and making a genuine go of it. But at the same point in time, that doesn't take anything away from what I think is a very enjoyable concept of just getting some players that you play with on the regular and ranked, and trying out the more sort of competitive environment, the organized play environment. These are the things that make a scene just really fun and engaging. So I'm glad that they've got the opportunity to do it. And I'm glad as well that they have, of course, sent us over to Chalet. I mean, it is kind of what, outside of Bank, it is one of the newer maps in the pool. It provides us with, I think, a little bit more interesting discussion points, a little bit more interesting strategies than we would perhaps see on one of your more bog standard maps, such as Oregon, right? Teams are, I would say, have mostly figured out Chalet, I feel like, at this point in time, but because it is newer, I think there's still plenty of room for growth and development in terms of how strategies are going to work, how teams want to do their setups. And I feel like there have definitely been a couple of times where I've seen some very different philosophies, in particular the top floor site and what is Bar Gaming, I think that's what it's called, the one on the first floor. I've seen some very different strategies about how teams want to defend those two sites in particular. So I'm always quite interested to see how teams come at those.
Another point that I was just thinking about is I wonder how Chalet, if you look back at some old VODs, would compare to the way that it was played now. Because for a long time, as you allude to
Ooh,
there, we haven't had Chalet for a huge amount of time. It's definitely
yeah.
behind maps like Clubhouse, maps like Consulate that we've been casting, and older casters, more experienced talent have been broadcasting on since the inception of Rainbow Six and its competitive scene. There was about a 2 to 3 year break where Chalet was not played at all. Um, I it's such a distant memory. I think I've seen maybe 2 or 3 matches ever played on the map in the old way before it got the rework. But one thing that I do remember is there was a lot of angle holding, and the attackers, off the back of that, being that they were able to quickly shut down rotations, generally did take advantage, which is kind of a shocking
Yeah.
concept. And you look at the way that Chalet is played now, oftentimes when people talk about defenders versus attackers in a statistics point of view, Chalet is one of the big maps that comes up because it's so friendly to the attack.
Yeah, I would consider it to be one of the more, if not the most attacker friendly map in Siege. I do think it's worth pointing out. I feel like part of that might have been motivated by the fact that the map was newer when I think we were drawing a lot of those statistics initially, right? We look back onto, was it the Invitational? I think it was the Invitational where we first saw Chalet getting in, or was the Major? I can't remember which, but we were pulling stats off. It had been recently reintroduced to the pool, so that might have impacted it just a little bit, but I do stay by the idea that it is kind of attacker friendly. And I mean, you compare it to the old one, I think the biggest change overall in between the two maps is that Basement went from being the site, right? It was the site that you really wanted to play as a defender, to just being, persona non grata here in the site lineup. Nobody wants to tench Basement with a 10-foot pole. You don't want to go anywhere near it. And for very justifiable reasons. I mean, recently I was playing some unranked. Obviously, the experience doesn't directly transfer, but man, that Basement site is just impossible to hold these days. It feels so much harder than it used to be. And I think that was a really good change to the map overall, because it forced action up to the upper floors, and it also makes a very interesting kind of throughway of that Basement. I think one of the most common plays we see when we see Chalet nowadays is defenders and attackers both using the Basement more as just a rotate angle that they will try and take to get the advantage, especially in gunfights on the top floor. People generally aren't doing a very good job of roaming out the Basement a lot of the time, or I should say roam clearing the Basement, as it were, and players can really get an advantage by using it.
Yeah, I like the Basement as that sort of kind of highway for flankers and attackers looking to maybe get in and move quickly. The one thing that I would compare it to is, of course, Villa and its Basement. The site on the Basement
Mm.
doesn't exist on Villa unless you're playing some secure area or hostage, but that
No,
just
yeah,
doesn't even matter at this point.
no.
But I think the basement of Chalet is a little bit more accessible for the offense, right? There's a couple different staircases. You've
Very
also
much
got
so.
some exterior entry points, thinking of snowmobile, car garage, ventilations, even trenches well there. However, on Villa, your options to get in are a little bit more dense. Oftentimes, you need to have a breaching chart, just like those little secret tunnels through the wine barrels.
Yeah, yeah.
I
The wine
wonder,
cask,
I
yeah.
do wonder how Villa would operate if maybe it had some more easy to enter pathways to get in that basement. Maybe it could even, rise among and above the way that we see the basement on Chalet used.
I feel like the difference probably too, to a certain extent, is Villa feels, and I might be incorrect in this assessment, but Villa does feel like a bigger map to me, which I think makes kind of taking the time to go down in through those basement entrances, even if they were more prolific in terms of their number, it just takes longer, right? It takes longer to work your way back to the site. Chalet feels a little bit tighter, which is why I think that people are more prone to kind of play in and out of that basement area. And of course, like you said, I mean, just general ease of access, right? But it does kind of behoove teams, especially attacking teams on this map, to at least consider it. And I think some of the heaviest losses that I've seen for attacking sides on Chalet have been attacking teams that don't respect the danger that the basement poses to them or the effectiveness that it can be on their attack. So it's definitely something to consider, especially like I said, you go to the top floor site, you're really kind of focused on the entry and pushing in and just trying to secure kind of the critical corridors, the push from Solarium coming across onto the bomb site. It's easy to forget that, a defender can very quite simply sneak up behind you, right? If you're not taking adequate precautions. So always interesting to see how teams will try and address that potential roam danger there as well.
Do you really remember a lot of old Chalet in the like the site rotation and the way that the other objectives beyond basement were played?
Wasn't it like basement and then you went top floor and then you went like kitchen? I want to say, right? Was it something like that, or am I completely off the mark? I think that was it was basement, and I'm pretty sure top floor was always the secondary site that people wanted to play.
Yeah, I'm
Looked
thinking
very
about.
different.
I feel like Chalet. Did they add another bomb site? They might have. Um,
Maybe I don't remember.
no, it looks like they didn't. They had gaming. I don't even really remember what old gaming and bar looked like. I'm trying to picture that in my mind. I just can't do it. That's such a long time ago. But I do remember kind of more vividly the way that the second floor, the office and master defense was played because there was that
Yeah,
balcony that you always had to deal with, kind of where Solarium is
right.
now. And you would see from time to time kind of like some castle mirror strats where you would place them on that wall facing
Yep.
the balcony. That was the one thing that I did really enjoy. It was kind of a first introduction to some of those more utility and intensive setups and your common default
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, second floor looked incredibly different than it does now. But well, podcast is over, Six, so we can actually get into the game now. We've had a nice, it was good. It was a fruitful discussion, an interesting little chat there about old chalet and new chalet and what have you. But I never did get to share the temperature for Corville, friends, so I'm going to throw it in there now. It's 28 degrees Fahrenheit right now in this particular location, though I assume it is nighttime there, so not perhaps reflective of the map itself. Maverick getting banned out here, kind of an interesting choice overall, just going to make the hard breaching a little bit more difficult, especially thinking of that second floor site in particular, Stick, where you often have a hard breacher try and come in through the wall leading out to kind of fireplace hall. Does make things a little bit more uncomfortable if you don't have the Maverick to rely on, and it looks like we will be heading into a pause. We were so close. It does appear like Nyx has unfortunately dropped here right on the last ban too, Stick. We were so close. We were getting right in. Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll just carry on through.
You should be able to make it back in time. Shouldn't take him too long. It kind of depends on what. Wait, Nibs is in this lobby? I hadn't even recognized that. This is like a inter-team transfer because Nibs plays on, or it did play on. I was aware of this. Relahado told me that Nibs had been dropped from Coastal, as you can see CSG in his name. But he's on Too Relax now. I guess that's interesting. I can't really say that I remember anything of huge consequence that Nibs was able to accomplish, other than maybe that 7-1 victory that his team had in their first week. Another tidbit here that I would like to thrust upon you, Corbeck, is the fact that GDK are the one team to have been the victim of a 7-0 loss so far this season.
Oh, that's an unpleasant statistic. That's not a particular weight you want to carry around with you. Quite a scarlet letter, but I mean, somebody it's got to happen to somebody, right? At some point in time, and the thing about statistics like that, at least in my mind, Steak, is I just never know how much stock you can overall put into them because sometimes teams show up and they just have a very bad day. Right, like it happens to the best of us. Sometimes, it's just not a good day. You get your 7-0 blowout, and then suddenly you're the team that got 7-0, right? And that's just by reputation. It might not be kind of like reflective overall of your talent. It's just reflective of one particular map on one particular day. Still, like I said, not a scarlet letter you particularly want to bear.
Yeah, we apologize for the extended delay. Hopefully, we should be getting the game on track momentarily. The one thing here that we do need to talk about, of course, GDK. Oh, never mind. We're going to have a call come down that we're going to be heading to a break, so we'll resume that discussion after this intermission.
At the bottom of the ocean, I'm at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the ocean, don't know if I'll make it back home.
Well, Corbeck, we're finally into the matchup. Again, sorry for the delay. The game should be back on track, barring any kind of avalanche down from the mountainside or any abominable snowmen creeping in from the basement.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those. in the French Alps in particular, right? Abominable snowmen everywhere. Can't throw a rock up there without hitting an abominable snowman, or so they tell me. But hopefully, these teams will be able to throw their utils without hitting anything in particularly unpleasant. Jaeger here, so no Wamai will be taken. And my God, we are on basement right after we talked about it, too. It's a salient objective for them to be playing right now.
Why? Why are they defending the basement? I was gonna mention this earlier. If we had to talk any longer during the setup, looks like, fortunately, old Coltrane has equipped the Wind Bastion battle dress uniform, so he has to be TK'd. He should leave the lobby to go take that off. Poor Arcade has got the band cosmetics. But what I was gonna say is that in my collegiate escapades, me and Chief have had a number of basement defenses. It seems every time we cast some old collegiate game on this map, we get some situation like that. So the fact that you're what hazmat? Are you? It's gonna be one of them games, Corbeck.
Yeah, it was not the world's most skillful peak that has ever been peaked, but well, it's done now, Stick. There's nothing more really that needs to be said of that. See, now that attempt at a peek right there, that's a lot more cheeky. I appreciate that a lot more that was coming out. Unfortunately, though, won't manifest in anything good. GDK good Pro here going to go ahead and just take down, I think, a zero cam here early on, and Sad Viper comes sailing in. Sad Viper moving down through Trophy, looking around, takes out the default camera and begins their way to just secure the top floor control here so they can finally start their way down to basement. But got to be a little bit careful here because Pro is in the area. Can't really be ignored. Nearly gets picked from above.
The Jaeger will have to rotate off, but they do have that pressure around West Main, and Freezing is prone in trench a deep angle against Proxy. The Jaeger tried that Tarps maneuver. The Maestro will attempt a counter swing of his own against the Habana's position outside of trench, but things are looking pretty dire for GDK in this round. The basement defense has surprisingly, of course, to all of our shock, not gone well for the defense. Looks like the Replicator trying to grab some intel. Maestro now caught in a terrible opposition as Powers trying to hit the long-range shot with the shotgun pistol, and that'll be a cruising victory for Team Zurelax in the first round basement.
Well, yeah. There's not a lot to be said about that one there. Kind of how we would have probably expected it to go, all things considered. I mean, you saw, I think, a really good thing in there, or a really illustrative thing, I think I should say, is just what a poor site that basement site is, because you see how destructible the floor is above it. You really have the ability to really cut down on the exits and pin a team in there, for lack of a better term. There's just so many vulnerabilities on that site that a competent attacking squad can exploit, that it makes it really hard for roamers who are positioned on the upper floors in particular to even sort of wend their way back towards it without kind of having to deal with a ton of interference from the enemy team. It's just not a very strong site. This site upstairs on the master bedroom, much more effective. That said, I'll be curious to see exactly how they want to set this one up. A lot of teams will kind of focus their defense around a few key specific points. This hallway here leading out into library is one of them. Interesting poke holes being knocked there by Power. I'm curious to see how they use those, Stick, in terms of kind of holding this long side. I mean, they're leaving the wall unreinforced. That's intentional, right? To allow the team to play around it and use that kind of area as a killing floor. The shield on top of the piano, also another classic setup for most teams on this side.
Well, Proxy is going to try that same window peek that Hazmat had done just in the previous round. We'll see if he has any more success. I think they're aware of it again. Zero start to slow down, and they aren't paying attention to it. I don't know how you kill somebody spawn peeking there the first time, but then don't do it the second. Proxy is going to put down the zero. The opening kill goes the way of GDK. Still have the Jaeger trying to maybe hold out because for a bit of a reaction shot, trying to hose one down through the wall. No attacker inside of West Main at the moment, but plenty of them down through the basement. Seemed like maybe Team 2 Relax were trying to approach that and get control of the first floor before they progress to an execute on the site. Iana is going to test Proxy Now Zofia jumps in, the stun in full effect. Jaeger still stuck on the opposite side of this table. Zofia will finish him off.
Yeah, not a lot Proxy could really do in that scenario. You saw those flashes come in. Proxy was basically stuck in place. Power trying to get one in there as well, but Nyx is quick to read it, brings down the kill almost immediately. And now a 4v3 scenario here for these defenders, kind of forcing the defense to tighten up a little bit, basically hold the top side alone. Hazmat with the opportunity to secure a kill, won't quite find it. Luck backing up just a little bit. The Iana shoulder peeking through the door there. Couldn't tell if it was a Gemini or not, as Luck comes back around the other side, but he's caught by a very obvious repel down on Solarium, and that'll be the final kill right there to sentence it all to the end. And well, I just despair a little bit here, Stick. This has not been the best 2 rounds to start off the map.
Yeah, GDK haven't seemed like they are really going too crazy on the match. Not the invitational finals here from them, surely. And we did highlight that point earlier about, you know, 2Relax being a team that does kind of try a little bit more. And I am appreciative of the fact that Nibs has stepped into this roster. You never like to see a player get dropped and then linger in free agency for such a long period of time. So it's good to see that he got picked up so quickly. The other player that got dropped on Coastal actually retired. I believe that was Psych. So, you know, while that sucks on the one hand that he won't be playing anymore, at least it's better than being perpetually LFT. I guess you could call that an Audi moment. If you've ever seen him, he's kind of got a pretty extensive record of LFT posts, almost one every week.
Do you see Coltrane's placement of that Frost map right there? I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but it's triggering me a little bit. What? Usually you place them up against the window horizontal, like parallel, you know what I mean? I don't know why it bothers me, it just does. It's such a strange way to put it. Anyway, I digress. You got the Alibi here on the top deck as well. A lot of teams will choose to invest defenses in the library like this. I actually like putting the Alibi clones kind of up there, just because they could provide a relatively decent source of intel. I don't know if I would keep the Alibi herself in that particular position. Library tends to be very vulnerable. It's kind of the last place that you want to have to end up on your hold, but you certainly can defend out of it. I've seen teams do it. By the way, my love and appreciation for Alibi grows daily. I think she is becoming a very, very solid part of some certain defensive lineups, and I am totally here for it.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the Alibi is the fact that the recoil is so extreme now after the nerf. It's just
I noticed
I
that
can't even
actually.
touch it. I cannot.
Yeah, I noticed that
down.
actually last night when I was playing as Alibi. I like opened up, you know, and it should have been a guaranteed kill, and I totally forgot that they had changed the recoil on it. My gun was just like, whoop, like we're going to space, brother. I was like, oh my god, I forgot they did that. No, I think I died in that scenario. The next time though, it went a little bit better because I knew to expect it. But definitely the first time caught me off guard. It was quite funny.
All right, well. It's a vertical extension. I wasn't really sure whether or not I could expect GDK to deploy such a strategy after kind of the chicanery that happened in the first 2 rounds, but they've got... interesting that they have the deployable there facing towards the library side. A grenade will detonate, and that shield does get blown up. They still have the other one closer towards Chimney. Alibi kind of prancing around near the library area. To relax, getting into the utility burn. Hazmat's going to soon realize that the shield is about to go kaboom. We'll try and wing in a My Magnet late. Doesn't seem like they were able to follow it up in time, or I suppose I'm wrong, as now the shield goes boom, and the utility is cleared.
That is always kind of the central choke point, right, of this upstairs defense, is just fighting around that particular tail end of the hallway right there, trying to establish some sort of domination over the top side. You see that it's also forced Power to drop down low ground as well, and now it looks like 2R do have pretty successful control over the library, which means that theoretically they can start going to work on the vertical here. 40 seconds left in the round, though, and they are running a bit short on time, so if they're going to start making moves, they got to start making them quick. Freezing there, going for some shins, can't find them. It's actually Hazmat who strikes early here, gets one in, though immediately traded out there by Nibs. Nibs gets another one. Nibs now pressuring in towards Kitchen here. Oh, unfortunately not able to make it stick against Power. Power surviving with just a fraction of health. Leaves us here in a 3-3. 15 seconds left on the clock. The kill's continuing to fly. Freezing is in. Will start the plant, but he's popped. No! Didn't quite get him through the wall. Just knocked him. Nick's now coming to try and make it stick. Gets one. Can't find the other one. Only 2 seconds left. Didn't grab the diffuser in time. And it will be a defender round.
Yeah, that was a slow attack if I've ever seen one. They really tried to go pretty meager in the pace. Even when they got control of Library at the end, it felt like they were still like kind of in that, shell shock of getting over the fact that the defenders are clear out of this top floor. And that's the one thing you don't want to do against a team like GDK. Is be slow, be, inefficient, ineffective, because you get something like Hazmat, where he walks up the stairs, even though he doesn't have it deployable, because maybe two are a little bit uncomfortable in their positioning or they're distracted because the time is starting to run out. That allows an opportunity for a defender to get a kill like that. Yes, kind of a stopgap measure for the defense to get aggressive when their vertical extension is gone, but what other options do you realistically have, Corbeck?
Yeah, it's true. You don't really have a lot of other options. I do feel like they did slow down a little bit there, like you said, though, to their detriment. I think if they had just kind of kept the pressure on, GDK would have continued to fold. But, hindsight 2020. It was a good bit of play there by kind of luck at the tail end to not only secure the kill, but also secure the delay with the smoke bomb and just his general positioning to force 2R into an unpleasant scenario. So I give them credit where credit is due. They're going to go back up to the second floor now and begin their defensive preparations. I assume that it will look quite similar to what they did last time. Of course, it's worth pointing out that bringing both the alibi and the smoke means you do have 2 shields in this lineup, which is quite useful for defensive setups, all things considered. Power there setting up a strong shield placement looking out towards the fireplace hall wall, and then one there as well, but it's freezing. Popped early on what I can only assume is another spawn peak, perhaps from Hazmat that time.
Seems like it was perhaps the source of that being the ego double window. Proxy is very keen to give it his all here against Nibs. The 0 eventually falls back. Might seem as though another attacker is going to move in and attempt to support him, but Proxy is finished up with his peeking of this window. Hazmat has got a peek of his own. Look at the reverse repel, such a tight angle for freezing out towards Ego, trying to see if they can tap the head of the player. So aggressive by the Library Hall. I would like to see maybe 2R be a bit more decisive in the way that they clear things. Do you really need to spend, 30 seconds down there at the main door trying to shoot at Proxy? Probably not. Probably could have spent that a little bit more wisely by ascertaining some map control, because, you don't want to have a round 3 happen over again. And as you see, 2R have finally stepped into that role, have started to get some of the map control, but are still worried because, number one, they've got a player on low HP, and up until the pickup comes against Proxy, they were in the man disadvantage. So hopefully with the Habana's kill there against the Jaeger, that should maybe give them a bit more of a closer advantage, some extra purchase in the 90 seconds.
Yeah, you can feel that it kind of maybe emboldened them a little bit, because I feel like they started to get quite a bit more aggressive on the back side of it. The wall blowing out right there to those ex-Cairo peasants, but they haven't quite checked that basement again. There is a body in position there who could be quite a nuisance. Coltrane with a decent position there on the prone, unfortunately can't make it stick. Power could come up here at any time and really, I think, throw sort of these plans into disarray. Sad Viper there trying to win one over. Luck gets the kill, but it's traded out immediately. Coltrane going down in return, and here comes Power on that angle like a dagger. Unfortunately, the dagger misses just a little bit. I think he wanted more value out of it. They still got Hazmat down there as well, Stick.
And that might be enough information as they've realized there's one away from the site. That could mean an opportunity for the attackers to start to hit it hard. I don't know what the plan was for Hazmat running back into Master. Needed to keep his gun up there in that moment. Again, Power still trying to tease this blue stairs position. Zofia is going to hop in. The Alibi has to run and duck for cover, but misses it entirely. As the 0 will pop the head. The plant had been attempted for a brief moment. Sad Viper reconsiders, but now back on the defuse once again. Luck is going to try to swing. but that LMG packs such a mighty punch, and the pre-fire completely dismantles the Smoke's attempt to retake.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate nature of going into a gunfight there with the SMG-11 versus that LMG. Just the pre-fire alone is enough to really wipe you. Not that Luck had a lot of options in that situation, Stick. I mean, realistically, what are you actually going to do? You got to challenge somebody, right? Maybe swing it with the shotgun and hope that you get lucky, but you're stepping into, that storm of bullets that's coming out of that gun. So there's not a ton of hope. They'll go back to master bedroom office again. I can't blame them for doing it. It's the strongest site that they probably have available to them right now. Power switching over to the dock is an interesting choice, and maybe foreshadowing yet another spawn peak coming out here. Other than that, they still maintain sort of the stable core of the lineup. It does seem like they're flexing around it just a little bit. Hazmat now coming out on Legion as well. We've seen Legion make a couple of appearances. Interesting, actually, to note that Legion is getting in here, Stick. I do really like Legion as an operator. I think he still has a lot to offer. He basically gives kind of continued dynamic intel, right, for his goo mines. But he gets caught in that classic trap that I talk about sometimes, which is like, is there somebody else that would bring more util? You know what I mean? Like, hey, we bring him along, but is there somebody else who does more? And I think that's usually why Legion gets left out of a lot of compositional setups, despite his overall value.
Yeah, Legion, like, sometimes he's good. It's hard to very accurately... Proxy's gonna do it again. Here it goes.
He's totally gonna do it again. They checked it that time, though.
Yeah, you are not gonna let that mistake slip through. The Legion, he does have a couple things that he brings. I like his gun and where it's at in the meta game. Some guns have a little bit too much recoil on the defense right now as compared to maybe their DPS. And I think the Legion and his T5 is a very good middle ground. Decent fire rate, about 800. Solid damage, nothing crazy, no 416 numbers or anything like that, but he's also got some decent utility in the form of a bulletproof cam. You can bring impacts if you need that for your site setup. I don't think Hazmat really thought about why he was bringing the utility, because what he really need impacts for on a master defense, but the idea is there.
Yeah, I like what you said about his gun, too. It does feel like one of the most kind of even defensive operator guns. It feels like an SMG. Speaking of, he gets one, he gets two! It feels like an SMG in the hands of Hazmat, that's for sure, who go ahead and just get those two-click kills. He tries to get one more, but Nyx is there that time and rather preempts it. There's another kill there in the mix, though I missed it, and they've done good work there, and Hazmat destroys two drones and says they were there for no reason, which he may or may not be correct about. I didn't really see what the placement quite was on them and the quick flick over. The droning coming in here from Sad Viper, speaking of drones, just giving him a better idea of what this site setup looks like, and it's pretty stereotypical, all things considered. The window is open there as well, Stick, which does mean that cut is in place, and a hole has now been opened in the wall as well.
Luck is playing hyper aggressive. I'm not sure how the sledge hasn't killed him yet. Will attack one down that long hallway sightline. 1 versus 2 for the offense, as Nyx is still just waiting at Solarium. I have control of the diffuser, but it's relatively nearby. Luck is trying to work this one, running out of ammunition. Nyx is having some trouble. Proxy on the support, and Luck puts it in. The headshot connects, and the kill is found to put together another round for GDK.
Really solid round from Luck. Honestly, take major credit right there. Played that, as you said, very aggressive, Stick, but got those kills off of it. You saw the great kill coming over under the swing on Solarium, caught somebody who didn't even know what was really going on, who tried kind of basically slow rappelling there across master bedroom windows, set it up very easily, and then a good little gunfight there against Nyx as well to close it down. So a very well played round from the anchor. Wouldn't expect kind of anything different given the position he was in. I have had the feeling that Luck is looking to kind of pop off at any given time. It's just been a little bit hard because he's been in such difficult situations at the tail end of the round. So I'm glad that he had an opportunity to flex a little bit right there at the tail end. He actually will swap over to the Kaid here. It'll be Coltrane who will pick up the smoke anchor duties on another Bar Gaming attempt.
I have a hard time placing this game. It's like GDK, the first 2 rounds were like sort of troll in the way that they were playing. Like you had Hazmat tried to peek Solarium. You had the TK because Coltrane had the wrong skins on it with Bastion. And 2R picked those up, right? So kind of, maybe you could say a little bit of freebie rounds. And now that GDK don't have any of those weird issues cropping up, they have managed to accomplish, I think the goal that a lot of defenses on Chalet set out to do, which is accumulate 2 rounds before the half. I think there could be maybe even room for 3, as of course this was the other objective that the defense has won on so far. Is there anything that comes out to you in comparison between these 2 teams and maybe, who could be the, eventual winner?
It's interesting because I feel like, you mentioned those first 2 rounds a little bit memey, kind of giveaways in a sense. GDK seems to have sort of snapped back a little bit. They've become a bit more serious about how they want to do that. They're very much focused on having those core sort of operators in their lineups that, if they had kind of played consistently like they are now, beautiful kill right there, by the way, Hazmat getting absolutely smoked on the long sight line down the hallway. But I was going to say, if they've been playing that way the entire time, I think this would be a much closer match than it initially appeared to be. That said, I feel like they may have dug themselves a hole with those first 2 rounds. If anything, just the kind of motivation and momentum gap, right, might cost them a lot in the long run. And Power, I think, is feeling a little neglected up here on the stairs. There doesn't really seem to be anybody too interested in him, and he's abandoned his defensive position at exactly the wrong time, now in a very unflattering attempt to come back to it, and I don't think he's going to be able to.
Goyo's in a bit of a pickle here upstairs. They've got a drone on him constantly. They're searching for it, but he will drop the hatch, and there's nobody there to collect the kill. Build a man advantage. Luck has got superior angle fighting back against Nibs, moving this closer to the even gunfight in terms of who's still left up on the field. Again, though, 2R, you kind of see them. They're being so hesitant about pushing forward to this library, which is the issue that I brought up when they lost around the first time. All they need is 1 drone to go in here and say that there is no more players left. And even still, that they've got this problem with the library, they managed to get some kills off the back of, just superior positioning, and the way that they've played has been overall much better in gunfighting this round. And so their hesitancy, their slowness might not matter in the big picture overall unless GDK can clutch up and win some big picks.
Well, 40 seconds left here on the clock, Stick, and their hesitancy still being the kind of dominant factor here. 30 seconds now. They have yet to make their final move. It's just 2 members of GDK here on the site. Now make it 1. Nick's getting the kill from the top. 20 seconds now. Time to make things happen. Coltrane running has managed to secure his first kill of the match in this round. Gets clipped on the backside. Tries to fire up towards the hatch. Too many guns for him to really do anything about, and he will get annihilated there in the doorway on the long sight line. And another round over to the side of 2R, and we will have the swap here. So GDK will now pick up on the attacker side.
I kind of could feel that coming almost. GDK, though, their advantage should be crazy monkey plays. That's just what you get out of a pug stack. You get Hazmat, or you get Power or Proxy that's like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and walk out this door and start shooting at the enemies. And sometimes that can be very frustrating.
The hold my beer strategy.
Exactly.
The art of hold my beer.
It was something that used to kind of frustrate me as a caster. Because, like, you see that happen, and you're almost like, well, what do I do now? Like, this team doesn't have any strategies. They just kind of start shooting at each other. They just run out. But you just got to live with it. You got to have fun. And in the eyes of your opponent, for 2R, I think they played well to shut down some aggression, but it's very 50-50. It feels like sometimes they do the right thing, and other times they have 2 drones on Hazmat in dining, but don't know he's there.
Yeah, you're right. It's this is probably a relatively good learning opportunity for 2R, just to get some solid practice in and kind of learn the best ways to go about attacking the site, defending this site, etc., etc. GDK has kind of, like you said, inserted that element of randomness into all of this, which is good in a sense for a team that's trying to develop their talent, because it does actually kind of force you to think in weird ways, to prepare for the unexpected. Nick's barely avoiding getting absolutely capped by freezing there, by the way, is the kind of thing that I'm talking about in terms of learning maybe how to do site setup a little bit. Not a lot of bodies on the site, actually. A big hustle coming back, and you actually have your Malusi all the way down in the basement as well, which I don't necessarily think is bad, but it is unfortunate if one gets picked. Instead, the run out coming through the garage door, I've seen that one before, and an absolute flurry of kills comes in, and it does look like 2R will be slightly ahead in the count.
Still having some trouble putting the pressure on this player at the trophy area. Again, Jaeger tries to swing. This time Luck will lock him down, but in the meanwhile, Nibs had netted 1. 2R, 3 versus 2. GDK still do have a pretty serious playmaking talent that we've seen Luck come away with so far this game. Kind of crazy to think that he's on the Nomad, but he's the top frag. And GDK, the problem here now becomes they don't have anything set. They don't have any map control, realistically. They, between these 2 players, do have some utility. You're going to be able to drone things out. You're not going to be in kind of like an intel blackout. Of course, you've got the replicators. You've also got a drone on Luck as well that he could potentially throw at. That won't matter. They're not going to drone it. They're going to run in. They're going to take the fights, because maybe that's just what you need to do. You want to catch 2R while they're away, neutralize that advantage, and come in with brute force. They have not yet confirmed the down onto the castle. Could have a human drone aspect in there, but as the Tachanka moves through the rotate, he gets absolutely erased by proxy, though traded back out in an instant. Sad Viper in the 1 versus 1 prevails, and that'll put 2R within grasp of match point.
It's so funny. I was literally just about to say, Stick, because you were talking about, well, they don't really have a lot of util, they don't have a lot of options, which you're right, they didn't. I was nearly about to say, well, the only thing they can really do is just full send it. Like, just go in there and try and get kills. And I actually appreciate that they were able, at least initially, to succeed. I mean, they got in, they got that good shot, they got the Tachanka rotating in. I think it was Freezing who was coming from the other room, and then they nearly had the success there. Just Sad Viper kind of swinging back on the other side did a really good job of cleaning up that threat. And I was funny. I was literally thinking, I bet they're just gonna blow open the door with the God 6 and just go in. Got to admire the, if not necessarily the execution, Stick, you got to admire the gumption to pull something like that at the tail end of that round. Because I know that I'd just be like sitting on the roof, confused and scared.
Yeah, sometimes the best strategy is no strategy. That's a lesson I've learned in R6. You just gotta run in. You gotta come up with something. And GDK, they almost did it. But eventually, Decade just tapped the shot away to put that round back in control. And it looks like a victory is on the way for 2 Relax. I won't go too far ahead of myself, because GDK could come up with some biblical comeback performance in the next few rounds, and I would just be completely blindsided, because that's just the thing that you get in this game. We don't make predictions in pickup matches.
No, it's true. I mean, I like to make predictions when possible, but you know, also don't want to get on egg on your face there at the tail end of it all, so that's okay. Freezing kind of running around. A lot of running, actually. We're getting on screen. They're all over the place. Oh, potential cheeky peeky coming out here. Don't think anybody's walking into that one anytime soon, and they will give it up and go find a new hunting ground. They brought a warden along. I didn't even notice that in the prep phase. Not sure why exactly they brought a warden, but he's there. ready to perform the eponymous Warden whack. Proxy trying to get a grenade in. Actually does. Unfortunately, there's nobody foolish enough to stand there and die, and gives away the location a little bit as well. Now Nibs is checking over towards that games room window. Doesn't see anybody quite ready to break in yet, but at least aware of the clear and present danger. Sad Viper here now as well, holding onto the library. Interesting placement of the hold on library, actually, Stick. That's a shield placement we don't see very often.
Yeah, I don't completely hate it. It's becoming more common to see this position held inside of the small box, but generally it's for emphasis on a push coming from kind of the piano side. You don't really see both of these walls, even all four of them, near library or box reinforced, and Viper having a rotate open between the wall as well is something I really like. This is kind of something that's a little bit more featuring ingenuity, which is great, because we don't always get that in Unified. Sometimes we just get default strat versus default strat, and so it's fun to see something that is a little bit different, and it seems like it's worked out to a great level of success for the 2R defense. Iana being very passive out on the balcony, but still able to come away with the kill against the Melusi. The toxic gas will begin to fade out as Power has snuck through the basement. Seems like the Goyo knows he's there. Power doesn't pull the trigger. Freezing gets the kill, and Proxy is nearly pushed off the balcony by the toxic canister.
All right, it's all on you, Proxy. This is it. This is your moment to shine. Proxy approaching the window here on the library, firing a couple of bullets in, just to let him know that he's there and that he's a threat. Fortunately, nobody quite going down just yet. Proxy wanting to get into the room, decides that maybe another window of the library could work. Just wants to check out a book and can't quite get one. Can't figure out what section he wants to go to at this point in time. Stick, he's stuck in the 1v1 section. Just wants the kill section. Can't quite find it yet. And Sad Viper returning the favor, trying to bring one down with the pea shooter. And well, this is just about the most exciting gunfight I've ever seen. As Sad Viper finally wins it out right there with a nice headshot. And my man Warden getting a little bit of action here at the tail end.
What is the Warden whack?
Warden whack? It's a Warden spawn peak.
Okay.
Ever heard that? I feel like now I've used a term that nobody has heard of, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but I have heard people refer to the Warden whack, which is where you start off on Warden and you do a spawn peak for some ungodly reason.
Yeah, if I'm thinking through
the world
operators
is a weird place
that are good for spawn peeking, and people would know that
one of them.
he's not. He's got his glasses are only useful, like, you're not getting flashed when you're spawn peaked. Like, that's just not something that happens. You're not getting stunned. There's no Sophia, Gersmont, lifeline, whatever, blowing up in your face. You're just getting shot at. And I don't know.
Didn't Russian Badger, somebody like a YouTuber, I think, had a thing where it was like Warden whack, and he used a different version of whack. It was like W-A-C-K as opposed to W-H-A-K.
Maybe.
So I think there might be some... Warden whack for me means you do a Warden spawn peek, but maybe Warden, question mark, whack is like, why are you picking Warden? That's really weird and crazy. I don't know. That Warden whack for me, though, is spawn peaks. So
Okay.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind next time I see a Warden spawn peak in 2023 when that eventually happens. But GDK, their chicanery and a kind of weird playstyle at the start of the game, I think, has kind of crept around to start to bite them here. But for Chalet, if were this to be a normal game, if we were just, commentator Bill and commentator Bob talking about it, we would be mentioning the fact that GDK are on the offense right now, and this is Chalet, which is something we did touch on briefly during the our little bit of pre-gaming that we had earlier. But I just don't think it's really relevant, Corbeck. I don't think this is a game of statistics. I feel like we very rarely even have those anymore in Rainbow Six because of the deathmatch meta.
Yeah, I agree. It's not really that way. I think a lot more of it is just gunplay oriented and kind of finding the kills. By the way, I love the fact that Proxy is bringing out Nook, even if it is kind of silly. It's just curious to see Nook played. I feel like Nook is one of those operators. Really cool concept. Really shame that she's not actually all that useful, all things considered. But, well. If wishes were fishes, the sea would be full, and alas, it is not. So, uh, the defender is tightening up just a little bit here. Can't necessarily blame them, but they've still got plenty of sightlines they can play off of. Beautiful kill there. Unfortunately, I mentioned Nook, and I spoke her death into being. Good trade back, though, on the other side, actually, from Power. Has Matt getting in a rather unpleasant gunfight on the top deck, though. Now, Sad Viper kind of in the firing line there, needs to back up. Still an alibi waiting down in the basement, though. Looking for the opportunity to come in and make someone's life rather unpleasant.
And you know, while the sea might not be full of wishing fishes, it is full of trash. So why don't you go ahead and go donate to Team Seas to help us clean up the environment? I just thought I would get that in there. It looks like the game is about to conclude, though. It's GDK. I've got Hazmat, who has had not the strongest game in the world. He's doing this. He's just letting it go. He's letting the recoil fly up, and there goes Hazmat. And now it's left up to Luck, who has had a decent game and a match where the rest of his team has been a little bit kind of off the wall. Toxic Babe is going to detonate. That'll send Luck back. Does not have the diffuser. Has 3 flashbangs, which probably won't matter because he's going to need to win these gunfights. Stuns could be helpful in maybe isolating some players. But with 30 seconds, the smoke is out of toxic canisters. Got the pixel angle, starts to pop up. Luck can only do so much, and that'll be the game. 7-2 victory for 2 Relaxed, as that's their second win on the season and their second match played in week 4.
Yeah, you could say that ending there was just bad luck. I'll see myself out. Anyway, I felt like there was no other way I could end that match right there, Stick. That was the only way, but certainly not the most traditional chalet I think we've ever seen in our time casting Rainbow Six Siege, but certainly had its intriguing moments. So we'll take what we can get here on a Thursday night. It's kind of a strange one, but one nonetheless.
Yeah, that was a bit of an unusual matchup. Not that we get rare of those matches in UPL. We've had quite a number of them so far this season, and always in my games that I'm casting. But I did enjoy seeing Hazmat around. It's good to see that he hasn't completely given up on Rainbow Six, though maybe his skill has kind of given up on him in some regards. But, you know, go ahead and hit the aim lab, and he'll be back up into fighting form. The young gunner reborn once again. But a 7-2 victory for 2 Relaxed, and that wraps up our coverage of Rainbow Six here at Unified tonight. Of course, we continuously run Rainbow Six. Week 5 is just a couple of days ahead. We'll start off back again on Monday through Thursday. So make sure you tune in if you're a big fan of watching Rainbow Six. However, if you're also interested in some Valorant, that's what we've got for you up next, so make sure to hang around. It's the Illinois State University Redbirds taking on Striking Vipers after the break.
I noticed I drink a lot of sodas when I'm gaming. Might as well drink something that's good for me. Head over to drinkolipop.com and order your favorite flavor.